So I haven't posted in a long time, but I had this small little project I was working on, and I thought, hey, let's make a YouTube video. So I'm actually putting some gates together, and right now what you're seeing is me marking out where the cuts are going to happen on the bandsaw. The part I'm actually cutting, or the part that I just saw me marking out, is actually a piece of board from DC Iron. They come pre-lasered to actually accept a lock and everything, so definitely worth the £30 if you're thinking of doing this kind of project, because cutting those out is going to be a pain otherwise. Pretty happy I got my trusty bandsaw. Many cuts have been made on this, and the next step on the process is to essentially cut out the other side, the mating slot, where which the Euro lock essentially locks into. So this is what I'm doing over here. Bit tedious, but it gets the job done. So all the steel that I bought for this particular project was from a company called First Class Fabrication. There's a dude called Sam there. And it's been particularly useful because I live in Oxfordshire and I haven't had a good reputable supplier for steel for a long time. So pretty happy I reached out to Sam. He had a few pieces cut for me and turned out okay. Over here what I'm doing is I'm marking out some holes to essentially drill through and then cut out some slots which those drop bolt anchors essentially go to. So the drop bolt is that stick you just drop down and it holds the gate in place. But the actual eyelets need to be welded in, and I never really found a good way of doing this, so 3 holes and then the trusty jigsaw again. It would be great if I had a laser cutter, but hey, we can all dream, hey. So back on the trusty bandsaw, and I only filmed this part to show you how sketchy this particular part is. It's probably sketchier than me using the slippers that you saw earlier, well, which I was doing most of my cutting operations. But hey look, using a couple of shims, going ahead and jigging this particular part the wrong way, it works. I thought it's probably going to be safer than me using the angle grinder to go ahead and cut this, because I did try and do that. There's always a risk that disc is going to go ahead and disintegrate in your face when you're cutting T-bar. I'm sure the pros can do it, but me, hey, just going to go with a sketchy setup. So if anyone fancies donating some welding gloves to me, I will happily take them. I do have many welding gloves. I don't know where they are, but they do exist somewhere. But right now, these gloves will have to do. I am welding up some lugs that hold the gate up. Essentially a hinge just runs through these holes. Tacking them up first to stop them from moving, and then welding them up. I wouldn't say I'm the best welder, probably class myself as one of the worst welders, but hey, as long as the welds hold, I'm happy. So here I am checking my diagonals. Absolutely crucial step in any frame building, and many times I've been caught out. I actually changed my tacking technique on these particular gates. I did learn all of this stuff many moons ago, but I've more or less forgotten. But instead of actually tacking on the edges, which is what I was doing, and which caused a previous attempt to actually move, I was tacking in the middle of the actual joint. Maybe if you zoom in it will all become clear, but this led to a lot less movement. Overall, I'm tacking in all the parts, making sure that I'm only tacking the areas on which I have access to a grinder, because some composite cladding is going to be sitting in this gap, and I don't want that weld bead to stick and protrude quite high, because it's just more grinding work that's required later on. Flip the part over and I do a full beader weld there though, so that holds everything in place. Gone ahead and decided to put a cross in this particular design, only because I really like the look of it. But cutting T-bar so it all fits together really nicely was an absolute pain. Sure, it looks real good, but is it required? Maybe not. So whenever I can, I try and use a flat wheel to just finish off my welds. I think it leaves a much better finish, and overall just much more professional look. So as part of this paint prep, I'm just going to go ahead and degrease this part, just using just a heavy duty degreaser over here. It's just a water based degreaser, and then I go ahead and wash this degreaser off with just a hose, and then finally go ahead and use an air compressor just to go ahead and get rid of all of that water residue and try and get rid of it to prevent the part from rusting. So here I am just roughing up the actual box section with an orbital sander using about 40 grit. This is just so the paint has something to adhere to tend to find the box section is otherwise quite smooth. And lastly, using some white spirit to go ahead and clean up and get rid of any residue. A lot of prep work required for painting, probably the reason why I hate it the most. Here I am going ahead and painting on the 2K primer. We decided to paint this on because it's quite cold here in the UK. It's an epoxy. This is a 2K epoxy. It doesn't really cross-link very well below 15 degrees, so didn't want to spray indoors, so here we are painting it on. This particular epoxy doesn't actually paint on very good. Did try and thin it down, but to be fair, the paint surface is less than desirable, but hopefully it will last. So finally we're on to our final coat. I'm actually using an automotive base coat for this. I think it'll hold up okay. I'm not particularly good at spraying, I don't particularly enjoy it, but I think overall the finish is a lot better than me painting it on. So I'm dialing in a new gun over here. I've actually never used this gun before, but eventually I get the hang of it. So I think at this point I realise why these gates cost so much money. I mean, all in, I think it cost me like £450 to make these, and I did look at getting them built by someone else, and I think they were coming around the 1.5k mark. So it's a lot of work going into custom gates, and don't think I'd pay the money, but maybe I just wouldn't do it again. So the composite cladding on this project was from Oxford Composites. We got a pretty good price, so if you are in the area, just hit them up. Seem pretty good. Using a handsaw over here just because it's giving me a much shredded cut than using that sliding meter saw. And then finally we're on to installation, which is by far the most enjoyable part. Wait, hang on a minute. What's going on here? The gates are supposed to be the star of the show, not her. So just going ahead and securing the hinges with some M8 coach bolts. They're stainless steel, of course, and they should be ample, beefy enough to hold up these M16 hinges, which probably hold each leaf, which weighs about 45 kilos or something, so quite weighty, but that's what we're going for here. So again, all the hardware is from DC Iron. Tend to find they're quite reasonable in terms of their price. Decided to go for a handle and lock cassette as part of this, and I'm pretty happy I did so. We do feel a lot better than alternatives out there. And then finally putting the cladding in, which is by far the best part, gives that nice crisp finished look. It's probably around 150 screws at the back of this holding this all together, but I think it's probably about adequate because these screws are quite small. And that is it, and we are done. So thanks for coming along on this little journey, and I hope you like the final product. I certainly do. They've definitely turned out better than I thought they would. Nice weight to them when you go ahead and open them up. I love the fact that they open in and out, and overall I think the finish is maybe better than I anticipated. A little bit of adjustment still to do here and there, but I'm pretty happy with the end product. So thanks again for watching this video. Hopefully I'll see you next time. Bye bye.